Welcome to episode 16 of the Fitasylum podcast. Today I'm really excited about our episode. You may have seen recently on our Instagram that Harry did a day in the life of an ops manager, and I was really interested in it. So very selfishly, I wanted to do a podcast on it. It's because Harry does a lot behind the scenes that people don't see. And when someone said to me, when Harry said to me he's an ops manager, I was like, what is an ops manager?
What the hell is operations manager?
Yeah, 100%. So welcome, Harry. Welcome back to the podcast.
Cheers, mate.
Was you interviewing me last time? Is that the last?
Yeah, but possibly. Then? Yeah, didn't we do about your gym?
Yeah,
I think so.
Rolls are back to normal.
Yeah, you prefer this way, don't you?
I do. So tell us about ops management and how you got into the role. Did you aspire? 5-year-old Harry, did he aspire to be an ops manager?
Can you imagine if I did?
I mean, that'd be good, though, wouldn't it?
Really, if I did, to be fair. Well, I was a tutor for years, wasn't I? So you basically, as a tutor, as you know, you learn about basically all aspects of the business. So when you learn about all aspects, eventually you just have to end up managing it all. So
I don't think everyone does learn about all the aspects. I think you learn about all the aspects because that's like your nature. You're always trying to make things better.
Yeah.
Like I remember when I first came on board, you were talking about how you used a different service. It wasn't Teams.
Yeah.
What was it called?
Yeah, we used to use Calls Direct, like an
Calls
e-learning
Direct,
platform. It was not very good.
And everyone always says how much better it is.
Yeah.
And no one else in the industry does it.
No.
So you've clearly seen something there and developed it. I suppose, is that one of the key aspects of being an ops manager?
Yeah, a lot of the time basically is you look at something, you review it, evaluate it and go, right, well, how can we make that better? That pretty much is it, because operations covers like literally everything. So from staffing to recruitment to marketing to say like everything basically. So you have to know a little bit about everything and then apply your evaluation skills and go, right, well, is that very good? Like, what's the point in that? I mean, does it take too long? There's loads of different steps that you need to go through. But yeah, it's just about wanting to make things better, I think.
So ops manager stands for operations manager. So Harry basically manages every single operation and moving arm of FLM training and Fitasylum. Yeah,
pretty much. I mean, I wouldn't say I have much to do with day-to-day finance or HR, but I know everything about it, if you know what I mean. So I know reference points of it. I know what goes on with the finances. I know all the
profit. You'll have targets.
Yeah, I know all the business plan targets. I write the business plan. So I know what goes on, but I wouldn't say I have day-to-day dealings with everything.
So you mentioned earlier that you were a tutor first.
Yeah.
When did you become an ops manager?
Yeah, it was a bit of a funny one, really. So we used to do a lot of face-to-face courses. In fact, that's all we did. So I was the Fitasylum lead tutor, where basically I was going to be teaching, but also managing the curriculum, managing the timetables. But basically, it was just me. Yeah. I was doing it.
If the book stopped at you?
Yeah, and there was no other tutors to work with. It was me. I delivered it, and we used freelancers. But then COVID hit. So after COVID, I had to go away and basically design an online program aspect of it. So if we didn't go online, we wouldn't be sat here, me and you, right now. So we went online. We delivered that, and then I turned into more of a manager, whereby we had to start bringing staff on, and that's where Jasmine came in, and all the Calls Direct stuff. So that's when you go from lead tutor to actually having to manage a full process and an operation that's going on and getting bigger.
It's very funny you say that. When I speak to a lot of people who are in higher up management roles, they always say they were doing that role before it became official. Would you say that's the same for you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're only a sort of small company really in terms of staffing size. We pack a big, punch and all that, but yeah, you don't until you actually have to manage people and processes. You're not really ops managing. You kind of just sort of leading something and making sure it happens. If that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense to me. Obviously, when I had the gym, I would say managing people was the element I underestimated the most, as I expect people's reactions, emotions to kind of reflect mine, which is obviously, as you probably know more than me now, is completely different. People don't always see things in your eyes or the way you planned it, and people have different approaches, methods, and I think that's what makes you so successful in your role, is you're very good at kind of like pivoting and deviating and kind of making sure everyone is on the right path, whether it be in their own way though, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely, because everyone's individuals. I mean, we talked about this before, but it's about channeling everyone into the same direction. Yeah. Everyone's perspective is going to be different, but as long as we're all working towards the same goal, you're onto a winner. So that's basically what I have to do on a day-to-day basis.
And for any football fans listening, that's, Chelsea spent 600 million last year and finished in the bottom half of the league. Yeah. So there's lots of talent there, but they're not on the same path.
Yeah, I wonder who their operations managers are.
Yeah, no.
Whatever.
Probably not there now. But like, where if you look at someone else, like you know, Newcastle, for instance, finished fourth. They obviously had a good direction. They were all fighting in the same way, and it's not necessarily about the talent you have, but the direction you set them people in. And it's all about the people in the business. What's involved in your role? What does like a week, a day, a month look like?
Yeah, I found this really hard actually to do the video on Instagram, because like what I do on a day-to-day basis differs every single day. So a couple of days a week I'm in the office, I'm speaking to guys who and women, everyone in the staff basically in the office. What are you up to? Where you up to? Sales, marketing, checking with Callum now and again, you know, see what he's up to. But there's different facets of what I do. So when I'm at home, I'm more remote, so I might check like student work quality check stuff, IVing, checking in with tutors, you guys, and just saying, right, well, how's everyone getting on? What you need from me? What support can I offer? And then I might be on site with apprenticeships, because we have apprenticeships as well. So I have to support Mike and Kaz and Jane to deliver all the apprenticeship stuff we do. So I'm very much sort of all over the place and never situated in one fixed position.
And that'll probably be the title of the podcast. No one day is the same.
Yeah, oh yeah, 100%. But for me, that's perfect. Because I really could not sit in the office for 5 days a week. I mean, I even struggle with 2 sometimes, just the mentality of it. I can't get into it. But if it wasn't different, I would struggle, yeah, 100%.
I think that's one of the things you taught me when you told me about marking work, is like have it split up into breaks, maybe move where you're working. So like usually I work out in my office, but like towards the back end of the last week and yesterday, I decided just to work in my kitchen, or my dining room even. So it's just nice to split it up. Sometimes I'll come and work in that corner where Cal is, and I suppose it's similar for you. You can kind of mix it up, but it happens more naturally for you.
Yeah, you have to, and you're always like, things will pop up and you're picking it up. Like you might go, okay, well, what's the marketing plan for this period? Like, how are we going to generate more leads so we can get more students? Like there's a commercial element to it all as well. So there's the managing of the staff, but also the commercialization of what you're trying to do, and managing that as well as managing the staff. So it's very much like, well, I'll pick stuff up, then I'll drop it and I'll move stuff around. It's very much like doing Tetris.
The whole spinning plates analogy of we've got a lot of spinning plates going. Yeah,
people always say that.
And so what skills are required to be an ops manager?
Actually, I have no idea, mate. I'm really genuinely not quite sure. So, I mean, what do you think?
I would say the number one is the most important in any business is people.
Yeah.
And I know personally that's the area I struggled with the most and still do probably, where I would say that is definitely your shining light. Very empathetic, very like easy to talk to, and I would say, people skills. Other skills, you have to be organised.
Yeah,
You're very good with that to-do list.
To be fair, I'm very organised. I have a massive to-do list. I always follow it every day. That's something that I'm on. So to-do list, being organised, communication, which is basically people management, communicating with people. I would say,
excellent with communication. Always kind of, you know where you stand. Yeah. So I don't know how you would word that as a skill.
In terms of like knowing where you are right now, and knowing where you need to get to.
Other people know where they stand.
Yes, honesty.
Which, yes. That's probably the best way to describe it. So I would say there's a multitude of skills, but we couldn't pencil them in now. And I would say maybe that's a podcast for later down the line.
Which is why you said, like, when you're 5 years old, you don't want to be an ops manager. Because how could you even possibly even prepare for it or train for it? Isn't it? Like, you can't do it.
In preparation for the podcast at the weekend, because I'm a bit sad, I was looking at it and I put in what is an ops manager, and the first answer was a problem solver.
Right. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
And I thought that was a really good
That's probably pretty on point,
pretty good way of like, if there's a problem, who do we come to?
Yeah, everyone comes to me.
If Dave, Gary has a problem, it stops at you. If I have a problem, speak to you. Harry, the student needs this student needs that, this venue has done this, we're doing this weekend, this is what happens. And it always stops at you. So is that quite daunting?
No, so what I've learned over the years is when you make a decision, you have to make it. So if you don't make a decision, you leave it, then that's where your problems come. So if you make a wrong decision, it doesn't matter because at least you've made a decision. Yeah. And you've got to confidently and positively make that decision. And if you do it and it goes wrong, doesn't matter, you pivot and you do something different. But the confidence has to come in making a decision. Don't make a decision, you're lost in the middle, it's pointless.
Yeah, so you sat on the fence, and people are going to hate this analogy, but it's like at golf.
For the 5 people who know what you're talking about.
It was basically one of my coaches said to me, he said, Deck, even if you're hitting the wrong club, make sure you're committed and confident with that club.
Yes.
And the outcome will be better than if you pick the right club but you're not committed to it. And that always stuck with me. And even with, like you said, it kind of has a crossover to other things. If you've got a decision to make, stick with it and believe in it. You know, and it might not necessarily be the right decision, but you made it with good intention, and you've given it your all, and you're confident with it.
That's the important bit with the good intention, because there will be times when you make the wrong decision, you know, air quotes and all that. But it doesn't matter, because with the right intention, eventually you'll pivot and you'll make the right decision.
100%. Like, and I think of this like within your role, because I do not envy the management you have to go through. Same with Gary and Dave. Sometimes they'll tell me something that I don't necessarily like, but then I have to kind of check myself and remember that you guys are spinning 20 other plates in the background, and that decision has come through all those, you know, and that when people are thinking or complaining or moaning about any decision someone's give them, think about the wider picture, I would say, the bigger picture, because I think that's what you have to do all the time. You have to think of the bigger picture.
Basically spinning different types of perspectives all over the company, because every one person has a completely different perspective. Sometimes you're aligned on that perspective, but basically you have to pull all that together and then make a positive decision off the back of it.
A big example of this is someone said to me they were kind of like in a similar situation to us, where we can kind of work from home and you can kind of, you know, Nathan works at 7 a.m, where like other people might work a little bit later. I'm usually start at 7, 8, sometimes 9. But he went from working where it was very free to now everyone had to do 9 to 5. And he said for him that was fine, but he had other members of the staff who were, it killed their creativity, or it killed how they naturally work. They were early birds. And I think if that happened to us, like Nathan who starts at 7 a.m, he'd be less productive. I know if I was told to go in the office every day, I'd be less creative.
I would be. I think, if I'm honest, if I had to work in the office every day of the week, I think my mental health would slip. Just the mentality of having to sit there, be in that one space and not being able to free to move, I think I would personally struggle with that.
You are a creative person.
I think we both would struggle with that, right? I don't know.
I would.
We have to even move rooms. I do move rooms. Like, you say moving to your kitchen.
I have to.
Sounds like a small thing, but it's a big thing.
To put my coffee in is like a big thing for me that I learned on a podcast. Use a different cup, it'll just change your day a little bit.
Nice.
I do things where I have like different pairs of trainers per day, and it got to a crazy point where I was having like their Mondays trainers. So I was trying to stop that. So you're a bit crazy, but yeah, I think that's right. Like, you know, try and, if you can kind of give people a bit of freedom, you'll get a lot of creativity. I remember just after lockdown, I was working with a client who was a solicitor, and she said work got so much more out of her because she was working from home, just because she was like, you've cut out the commute, and 2, she just had more time and freedom to do it in her own way, and she actually found, instead of doing 2 or 3 cases a day, she was doing 5. She nearly doubled the workload, and I think that's the same for us. I
think you do have to kind of like caveat that with, there's freedom within a structure. So there always has to be a structure of what you're working, what you're trying to achieve, and then like an end goal of it, because if you're too free, this is people that own their own businesses as well, right? So if there's too unstructured and no target, you're free with no direction. You need to be free within a structure of some sort.
And I think a lot of PTs fall foul to this.
I can imagine so.
Basically, they think, I can manage my own diary. And then they'll go, right, I'm going to work 9 to 5 because I manage my diary. But they haven't put a structure in place of, well, actually, clients need to be when they're not working. We need to have clients when they're not working. So it's really funny. And I remember, like, if a PT ever says to me, Deck, I want to work 9 to 5, or I want to work 10 till 6 or something, I always say to them, no worries, you can, but it's just going to take a bit longer. And it's about that managing expectation, which I think if you say to, like, Gary and Dave, this is what our staff are doing, this is the expectations we've got for them, these are the goals we've got. If they don't meet them, then, there'll be consequences, like any rule you have in life.
100%.
So what would you say, obviously we talked about 5-year-old Harry, we've talked about his role, we've talked about the skills. Looking back at your education now, or even just your childhood, what prepared you for this role?
Good question though. I personally do think the masters that I did has taken me to another level, only because of the amount of evaluation and critical analysis I physically had to do on every little piece of work that I did. So when you do your masters, like it's a different style of writing, because everything you do, everything you look at and research, you have to critically analyse. So you have to find the strengths and the weaknesses in everything you do. And if you apply that same system into your day-to-day life, that's where you find out what can be improved and what are the positive things that you need to reinforce.
That's really interesting. My first mentor did the exact same thing with me. He said, Dec, we're going to work out what your strengths and weaknesses are.
Yeah.
He said, we're not necessarily going to focus on the weaknesses. We're going to go down the strengths. So he said, right, Dec, your strengths are X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
He said, we know these are weaknesses, so we'll just account for them by using your strengths. And I think you do that very well with staff. You might say, right, we've got to sacrifice this with certain staff, but we get this out of them.
Yeah.
And this is much more of a positive.
Yeah, that's how I kind of view it. I mean, there is a balance to that, of course.
100%.
But that's how I personally do view it. I know that's not something that everyone agrees with, but I do personally value that, because you want to make sure you're maximising what someone's strengths are, and can you account for some of the, weaknesses is like a bit of a
strong term.
It's a strong term, innit? But you might go, right, well, I need to maybe account for those other areas to make sure that they maximise this, and that comes of the...
But you might bring someone else in who can go, right, well, their strengths actually marry up with this person. So that as a team work really well.
That's team building, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the team build. That's like with football analogy, I know we're using sports all the time, but that's what they do. They account they account for the weaker areas by bringing someone in to do that.
I think for all the United fans listening, Gary Neville, David Beckham, the best partnership ever.
Yeah, true, yeah.
Like, people love that partnership, and it's coming back to working on each other's strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
A lot of people this season have criticised Trent, for instance, Alexander-Arnold, for being poor defensively, but if they got a winger who could help him, it might account for it. So within our team, I would say we've got such a strong team. I know, like, we're hiring at the moment, and when you're looking at hiring, I don't think I realised how good our team is until I looked at other teams. Like, Nathan and Jazz are just unbelievable, like, just so good at their job, and it just fills you with confidence, but it also makes, like you said before, we've got that creativity, but we have a minimum standard amongst us, and I think that's really important, and people will pull each other up and go, no, we need to make sure we're maintaining this standard. This is where we set out. We want to be the best. I believe we are the best at what we do, and I'm never ever shy of saying that, because we put a lot of work and time into it, and obviously a lot of it comes down to your organisation and structure. What do you, when you were younger and you went for education, do you think some things prepared you for being an ops manager? Did you do a variety of different roles? Like, for instance, at school you might have been like a prefect,
no,
you might have been president, or you might have done, did you do lots of different, because you played lots of different sports now and you do lots of activities, which tells me that you do like having other areas. So you're going for your black belt soon, you play rugby, you play golf, you're a family man, you've got so many plates outside, so that probably tells us a lot about you.
I think it's a funny one, because school was it wasn't great for me. So I went through high school and I came away with 5 GCSEs, and I was lucky to get that. So I went to go to college. I managed to go to college, but I didn't enjoy the process very well. And one of the reasons I think, looking back now, I didn't enjoy it was I was being forced to do something in a certain way that I didn't necessarily agree with. And that's why I am partly the way I am now, is that I want people to do stuff in their own way, again, within that structure. Because if I'm told to do something one certain way, in that fixed way, I will rebel against it. And I'll start to see the inefficiencies in that process and go, actually, I want to do something better, I want it differently. But if I'm confined, I'll run. And I think looking back, that's where I struggled with high school in particular. There was that restriction and confinement of, you have to do it the same as 2,000 other students in the school.
Which I think we've bore the fruits of that. We have so many students that have so many different outputs and different perspectives. I mean, even just looking at the podcast, like if we look at students that have been on the podcast, Toby today, completely different to Hannah, to Corey, to Holly. They've gone down different avenues because we've allowed that creative space.
Yeah.
And we allow students to kind of be as creative as they can be.
Individuals,
on the course.
isn't it? Yeah.
And we're not kind of shoehorning them into, you have to be this style of PT.
Yeah.
I know when I teach, I try and like let everyone be as open and as free as possible, which is really interesting. So moving on to experiences in professional life, have you done anything in particular in your professional life that's prepared you for an ops management role?
I guess like being a teacher, I suppose, is part of that, because you're managing the students basically, aren't you? And it's just upscaling that a little bit. So yeah, a little bit of tutoring, a little bit of management and stuff, but generally I've been like a tutor. I've done my degree and stuff, and I'm basically a teacher from that. So I've been in the industry a while, so like education wise anyway.
Who's harder to manage, students or tutors? I'd say tutors.
Yeah, it depends on the students, but yeah, possibly. Possibly.
And in terms of, you've mentioned your degree a couple of times. Do you think that's helped you, and how much do you think it's helped you?
It's definitely helps in terms of knowledge and research skills and like the softer skills. I don't know how much my knowledge of like sports therapy has really helped me in what I'm doing right now.
Oh, really?
But I know the other soft skills. Like when you go to uni, people say, well, I'll just do any course in English or history. It's like, yeah, fine, because there's a lot of soft skills you learn along the way, like how to submit stuff on time, meet deadlines, be organised, do your own research, use the platform, integrate IT. Like there's a lot of things that go into that rather than just go, I'm going to learn English for 3 years and that's that, because that's not how it is it?
No, 100%. It's more the wider skills that you kind of develop at university.
Makes you grow up as well. Did you? Yeah. I lived away and I had to grow up fast.
I lived in Preston. So I lived at Myerscough College, which for anyone that knows is like 40 minutes away from shops and major things. So it's quite like secluded. Yeah. So it was a very different experience.
So it makes you grow up faster,
it does,
doesn't it?
100%.
It did for me because I was in
cooking, washing,
everything,
driving, paying stuff, your bills, all that sort of stuff was crazy when you go to university. Like it's such a big shock, isn't it?
I think what I always say to people is if you want to go to uni, then great, do uni because you'll grow up. But if you don't want to go to uni, go travelling. Yeah. And those two things for me, because I've done them both. It transports the way that you view and how what your perspectives are on the world.
What did you learn more from travelling or university?
Probably travelling, because at different countries that you go to, you have to adapt very quickly to different cultures, and that almost in a sense is like managing a lot of stuff that's going on.
I had the exact same thought. Travelling for me taught me more about me as a person, and it taught me more about the world and more about where I wanted to be than university. But I'm not discrediting my university. Like I think that was so important that I did that, and I met a lot of people that are still friends to this day, and you know, some good people, and had many experiences. Yeah. And you've had many experiences with uni, travelling. Where was your favourite place to travel? I know the answer, but it's good for the audience.
Well, I did enjoy South Korea and Japan, but I'd say sort of like Thailand, Cambodia is probably the best place. Cambodia in particular, Angkor Wat, the ruins at Angkor Wat. So it's definitely a highlight for me, and it's cheap.
Yeah, well, Cambodia is becoming more commercialised now, isn't it? It's a different conversation now. So if you were running a university or college course on ops management, what sort of units would there be? Yeah,
well, like I say, communication, organisational skills, team building, and not like teamwork, because I think everyone knows that, but like how to actually effectively build a team and what nuances there are in terms of that. And also CPD and further development, because that's the key to what we all do as teachers, is we learn more, and that's how we understand other people's perspectives.
And when you're looking for staff as the ops manager, that's one of your main roles with recruitment, is like, what are you looking for in particular? Are you looking at someone who's ready-made? Are you prepared to mould that member of staff? Are you looking for a hybrid, someone who's done a little bit but needs to do this? What are you looking for? Because obviously recruitment in anything is so important, whether it be recruiting if you're a football team, if you're a cricket team, whatever it is, recruitment is so important. It's the same for a business.
Yeah, it depends on what time you're recruiting that person. So, for example, right now, we're looking for a more experienced teacher because we're looking to solidify what we've got and not make too many different changes because we've got things looming in the future that we might have to deal with. Whereas previously, we might have taken more of a risk on someone whose industry knowledge is like next level. Which if I use you as an example, that's a great example. So someone who's not worked as a teacher, but their industry knowledge and credibility is so high that you go, right, well, I can develop that person and I've got the time to do it. That's the difference right now. I don't know if we've got time to mould more teachers into what we do, so you have to get someone who's more teacher ready, and if you bonus more industry ready, but you don't know who's going to come through the door, you just wait, accept applications and see who comes, and then you figure out the rest, basically.
Yeah, I remember like when I came on board, obviously it was very apparent that I was more industry experienced rather than teaching, and I think if the culture wasn't creative, and then yourself, Nathan, Jazz, didn't help me as much as I could, they did, like then I wouldn't be as good as I am now. And I think like even like where you got Kaz and Dave who come in and do all the critiquing, I guess you could call it, and all those things help us to become such good members of staff, but also good deliverers, good teachers, just people who, you know, work together to try and come for this common goal. I guess we're all the same goal. We just want to be the number one provider, which I think we are. Do you set goals and objectives as an ops manager?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah. I mean, KPIs come at my ears, looking at different stuff. I mean, we have different stats that we look after. There's different success measures that we do. There's all sorts of stuff. I mean, I have weekly goals. I have daily targets that I hit. Like, I'm always looking and reviewing at stuff, because if I don't really know what I'm doing.
So a lot of your time is spent goal management, would you say?
Yeah, goal managing, goal tracking, and then setting my organisation platform from there. So if I know what I'm doing day, week, month, year, I can then work out my patterns and work patterns based off that.
Okay, that's pretty cool. And in terms of your development as an ops manager, how has it developed from the day you started to now?
Yeah, well, I definitely learned a lot from Dave and Gary in terms of like business planning, profit and loss, like management of the overall, what they call it, strategic leadership. So that's something, a course that I've been on recently to learn more about strategic leadership. And that's something I definitely had a gap missing, because I've been a teacher, managed the process and started to manage staff. And now I'm having to look at, right, what's the strategic plan of the whole company for the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. So
awesome. So you've basically developed a bigger picture again, looking at a longer term plan rather than kind of a short and medium term. Would that be fair to say? Yeah,
definitely. And also managing more in the future rather than just managing the right now, because I think you can get stuck in managing day to day and not thinking about how that affects the longer term vision.
And do you want to give any of the aims, goals, objectives for yourself or the business for the next few years? Do you want to give any of them away?
Well, I mean, the big one for us at the moment is the academy and mentorship program. I think we as a company have a lot of value add for the industry, because there's a massive gap in the audience and the market about what do I do as a qualified PT or even just a business owner.
I think we're very passionate about it because we see it as a big area for students to struggle with.
Yeah.
And I think the best part about us as a company is that we are genuinely looking to help. So that is at the forefront of everything we do. That's why we've made such an affordable mentorship program.
Yeah.
And if you do want to check it out, jump in the comments below or jump in the description. You'll see a free link. You get 30 days for free, and then you can check it out. You can even preview it before you even sign up if you want to.
Yeah, a couple of modules.
So, but it's amazing. And if I say so myself, it's very useful for any business, but mainly personal trainers, if you're looking to grow said business, because a lot of that is, as Harry said, no one wants to be an ops manager when they're 5-year-old. No one wants to be a PT in terms of how do you sell. When you sign up as a PT, you think you're just coaching, but running the business side is a completely different area. And
you become your own ops manager, don't you?
Yeah, you're the ops manager, you're the CEO, you're the
CIO,
HR,
CTO.
You're everything.
You are the man.
So yeah, Harry, if there was one thing people would take away from this podcast, what would it be?
To be as organised as physically possible, and I mean that in terms of all aspects of your life. So I've talked about this on different podcasts, like reducing stress, everything all works like holistically, but if you're organised in your day-to-day life, in your house is organised, if your mind's organised, then you're definitely more efficient and effective in anything you do. Yeah, discipline with your organisation, and you're not always going to get it right. You might try and be organised a certain way, and it might not work for you. You might set a routine up or organisation that doesn't work. Just keep reevaluating it. It constantly changes. Yeah, that right intention, as we said before. Yeah, that right intention is huge. Harry, thank you very much. Do you believe that's nearly 30 minutes? Is it? Wow, okay, fair enough. I enjoyed that, that was good. Quite quick. Yeah. It felt like a long way. Guys, I hope you enjoyed these sort of podcasts, and if you do, please comment below if you do, and if you want to learn about other people's roles within the business, I'd love to get Gary, Dave, Callum, Sinead, Vicky, Jasmine, Nath, Simon and so on. Yeah. It'd be great to kind of see what they do behind the scenes, because a lot of it people don't see. No, yeah, 100%. But no, thank you very much, Pat. Cheers, sir.